It's the freedom that managers give to employees for making decisions and fulfilling certain objectives. And it's the freedom employees have to do their jobs, and including the pace and the order of the work completion. It's allowing employees to take responsibility for their work and propose ideas, which, by the way, the value and importance of that piece cannot be overstated. It just can't.
Hey, it's Nikki Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it. Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science, and today I'm here with my dear friend, Tina Moe, who is part of a little club of friends that are some of my closest people. We call ourselves the CAMs, Kick-Ass Mamacitas. We actually planned that name, or we got that name out on the beach in Tulum as we prioritize taking time away and resetting and being around other people that inspire us. And so it wasn't just our small group of CAMs there. We were with a large group of people, but our little small group still sticks with that name. And Tina Moe not only is one of my CAMs, but she has been my CPA advisor, accountant, her entire team at ACT Services, which is the company that she founded. And she's one of the most unique CPAs on the planet. Like this lady, she's like, I love the business development side and I love the strategy side, which just makes her so unique. So I couldn't recommend her expertise more. I know definitely has a niche in helping people that are looking for like that CFO advisor. Also has a niche in specializes in the healthcare industry. So again, I'm so excited for my friend to be here today with me. And I asked her, I said, Tina, so this is a leadership podcast. And if you had to pick one thing that you want to inspire other leaders around, just so they could take action on this one thing that could move their people forward, what's the thing? And she said, autonomy, like leading from an autonomy perspective. And I was like, oh, okay. So of all things, Tina, welcome to the show. Why did you pick autonomy? Why is that so important to you?
Because it's just good for everyone in the organization, for a multitude of reasons. And we'll dig into that, but it's just good for everyone.
Yeah. And how did it become like such a high priority in how you lead? Were you always this way?
No, I'd like to say that there was sort of this innate wisdom that took me to that place, but it's not, Nikki. It was trial and error and learning along the way. You know, I've been practicing 31 years this year, so I've learned a lot over those 3+ decades. Holy crap. And that's just part of the evolution of developing yourself and an organization. It's learning.
And you can tell she started when she was 7.
Yes.
Right? Like very, very unique CPA
Prodigy.
there. Yeah. So tell us about like the journey to bringing like the autonomy perspective and like a cultural norm to your team at ACT Services. Like what was that journey like for it to become this like living core value, this living cultural norm inside the company?
You know, I think that it became a priority for me because that's what I always wanted. You know, if you look up the definition of autonomy in the context of the workplace or in business, it says it's the freedom that managers give to employees for making decisions and fulfilling certain objectives. And it's the freedom employees have to do their jobs, and including the pace and the order of the work completion. It's allowing employees to take responsibility for their work and propose ideas, which, by the way, the value and importance of that piece cannot be overstated. It just can't. Giving employees control over how they accomplish tasks, set deadlines, and when they want to work. You know, first of all, I think it's important to define what autonomy is. And I personally wanted and thrived in that environment. So I just think I defaulted to that type of leadership style. I think that's also why we have such a solid team here. We have thinkers and collaborators on our team, not people that have to be managed. And for the record, Nikki, I suck at managing people, that I am pretty good at collaborating with my team. And that's a big difference. And it took me a while to realize that this was not just a nice concept, but it was a necessity for my sanity. In the early days of ACT, I was working way too many hours, as many of us do when we're raising a baby business. And one night I was at my desk working on a complex tax return, and it was about 11 o'clock at night, PM. And I realized that I was completing a task that I had assigned to one of my tax accountants. He had run into a snag. It was a bit of a complex tax return. So he came in around 5 o'clock, dropped it off of my desk and said, I can't do this. And he turned around and he said, I'm heading home. And so here it is 11 o'clock at night. And I'm thinking, I am here completing this task that I assigned to someone else. And this is crazy. I need problem solving partners, not employees that I have to manage. So, honestly, out of sheer desperation, I implemented a simple but effective strategy that said this: look, you can come to me, please come to me with your challenges, but you better also have a couple strategies that, based on your research, that you think might be appropriate, and we'll discuss them together. But then you're going to take that file out of my office with you and you're going to execute on that. And you're going to see that through to its resolution. So that's actually one of our core values today is, we are not quitters. We see problems through to their resolution. And it kind of stems from, sheer necessity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that and your journey of, overcoming some of those things. I think that there's so many people that struggle because they've never found the simple strategies. They don't know how. I was talking to a friend the other day that, I mean, she's been in business ownership for at least 20 years. And I cringed when I heard her say, you know what, this whole work from home thing that like shifted our company. I just realized you can't lead a successful company that way. We're signing a lease. We're all going back to the office. And I was like, man, it's not that. It's figuring out like it's a different way of leading. Whether you're in the office, you're remote, you're whatever, you've got to figure out your simple strategy. Like you said, one of the things that we do at People Forward Network, it's one of our culture codes, which is we value results over time spent. Right? So if it's not like my day starts at 8 and it goes till 5, we really want to model a flexible work environment. And I think one simple strategy is if people know, here's my goals, here are my key KPIs so that I know what is most important and I can design my schedule around that. Like what it elicits in the people on my team, what they say is I feel trusted and I so value the flexibility, right? I don't know if you have any, other thoughts around speaking to the people that are like, it's just it doesn't work, right? Like this autonomy thing doesn't work. Besides having a simple strategy, what are your other thoughts to help them maybe think about that in a different way?
Well, I think people that struggle to lead with autonomy might actually believe that not leading with autonomy somehow maintains a level of control over the outcome, control over quality, reputation, whatever. And look, we all know the concept of control is over anything other than ourselves is an illusion anyway. But, I just think it has to do with some control issues, maybe. And I'm sure the intention is good, but they either built a business doing things a certain way and they believe that's the way, or they don't have trust in the people they hired. And either way, they're really missing out on the opportunity to let their team shine and share ideas. And that could really make the organization so much better. My team and their intellect and their ideas are my absolute best asset. And, that doesn't mean they have to be in the office to share that. They can do it their way from their offices at home and yoga pants. And, I don't know about you, Nikki, but sometimes I feel like I'm smarter when I'm in yoga pants.
Totally. Yes. And it's amazing the days that like I can just put my head down and get stuff done. I'm like, I didn't have to put on any makeup. I'm the most productive today. So it's different for everyone, but it's figuring out like the path to helping each person figure that out. Right. But it all starts with like people have to know the goals, the expectations. We have to give them the framework, right? Or of course it's not going to work. It's not I'm gonna walk around the office and just monitor you, which goes to you had said something about control and like surrendering control. The last guest that I had on, ironically enough, just was breaking down a study, a quantitative and qualitative study of 250 leaders. And she looked for faulty programs that are in the roots of us that cause these manifestations of, she said it so well. She's like, it makes us show up as our 10-year-old self if we don't attack those roots. And so, one, for example, was being a perfectionist. Another one was an overachiever. But then there was this other one of the top four that was control freak. It's just like, it's one of these faulty programs. It's like in us. And if not acknowledged, it's like, but that's really the thing that's standing in the way of the autonomy. It's the leader, right? Like of the control freak nature. So just goes right in with that research. I know you're really passionate about your journey of overcoming being a workaholic and like just challenging people like that is an unwanted outcome of autonomy sometimes, but talk a little bit more about the workaholic stuff and just fighting against that.
Well, honestly, and maybe it's my age, maybe, just the fact that I had been in that space, and quite honestly, I don't want to be a workaholic anymore. It's not good for anyone. It's hard on your health, your relationships, your ability to enjoy life fully. And I made that mistake early on. It cost me my health. It cost me a marriage. And well, I'll own my 50 on that, as Amy would always say, but certainly that contributed. Being a workaholic and putting my relationship on the back burner contributed to that. But, when my mom passed away, and you know this story, my mom passed away pretty young at 57 of breast cancer. And I was in the early stages of building a business, and my dad came to me and said, "You are working too much and you need to find a balance and enjoy life." And I said, "Dad, I'm building a business here. I'll relax when I'm retired." And my dad said, "Tina, your mom just died at 57 years old. There's no guarantees for tomorrow. You better find a way to enjoy life a little right now." And that conversation stuck in my mind and has ever since. And I did take his advice, and I do enjoy life, and I have what I consider to be a pretty good work play balance. You notice I said work play, not work life. Work play balance that works for me. And I encourage the same for my team. I'm kind of that kind of leader. Like, if I discover something that makes me happy in my professional life, and I want that for my whole team. In fact, I set a PTO goal for two of my leadership team members last year who hadn't, quite frankly, taken enough time off. And when we did one of our annual evaluations, I said, "Look, you need to take more time off." And I know that I think I saw some jaws drop, because you don't usually hear that. Usually it's like, "We need you here more." No, take some time and recharge yourselves. We eliminated PTO limits for team members who have been with us for 8 years or more. So we're rewarding longevity. And we don't require our tax team to work Saturdays during tax season, which is still pretty unusual for our profession, and especially in the Midwest. And lastly, last year we ditched timesheets. I don't need timesheets to prove that my team's focused on their priorities and their goals and their tasks. We can see that in the deliverables and the timelines and the client feedback. So it's that trust too, right? Going back and forth. So, again, as I grow and develop as a leader and find those things that work for me and recharge my batteries, I want the same for my team.
I love that angle of leadership, just this common theme or just regularity of what I learn as a leader to sharpen myself or challenges I've overcome. And I'm just going to share them vulnerably to help them also learn too. Like we're in a learning environment together. It's not a me versus them. Like we're all in this and we're all just sharing like how to do this and holding each other accountable. I'm curious, because there's many probably people that will be listening right now, depending on the season. I'm like, oh, I need to hear this. In those times where it's like we're on the workaholic train, right? It's like just putting so many hours in. Your dad came to you and was like, Tina, it's just not worth it, right? And you're like, but how could I possibly? I have so much to do. And you don't even see a path. What was it that you learned that you started to do that like took away all of those hours? Like were there efficiency hacks or you started saying no more? What were some of those things that you've learned so that you just don't have all that stuff on your plate like you used to?
Well, one of the things that we do, these are some of the tools or rituals that we've implemented here, that I've implemented along the way. One of the things is we operate under EOS, and that entire ecosystem promotes autonomy with accountability. And for those who are not familiar with EOS, it stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. I can really geek out on this because I love EOS. It was developed by a gentleman by the name of Gino Wickman about 25 years ago. And it's not a computer system, it's a people system. And it's a set of philosophies and approaches to running a well-oiled machine where everyone has role clarity, they understand the goals and the vision of the organization. And when you have that level of clarity, it just promotes autonomy, trust, and responsibility throughout the entire team. So when you have that, you can hand things over and trust that they're being handled. Most, if not all of our team members have KPIs that they monitor and report out, so they have a better understanding of how their role contributes to our collective success. I'm not the one pulling together all of the KPIs and reporting them out. We're doing that together. And I think that's really been successful for us. And we recognize and reward our team's successes with, bonuses, and part of their bonus is based on their use of their continuing education budget. So they're encouraged and rewarded for spending time on their professional development. I mean, we all need to be spending time on that. And when you get where you feel like you're in the weeds, sometimes that goes to the back burner. So we encourage that, we invest in that, and I think that is been huge for us as well. So we're all growing together. We publicly share out our wins on teams, and that seems like such a little thing, but it's always cool to read and see everyone's heart and high five emojis and stuff when someone is exhibiting some of our core values, or we get great feedback from a client, and just all of that contributes to how well we work together as a team. And then the one thing that I think is so cool and rewarding too to watch is our team coming together to evaluate and rewrite processes when it's necessary. Years ago, we don't do it this way anymore, but years ago, I sat everyone in front of a blank wall in our office. And maybe you saw this when you were in my office years ago, but we literally had post-it notes where we were sitting collaborating and mapping out an internal process so that we could visually see it and discuss it and move post-it notes around. And we're way more techy now, but it was the point that we were collaborating and working on that together. And when you have people who they have a voice and ideas that they can share, that goes such a long way with contributing to the autonomy of our team culture. But we're way more techy today with that kind of thing, but the team collaboration is definitely still there.
I love so many of the examples that you shared. And one thing it takes me back to around this topic of autonomy is I've never met a person that said, I want to be managed. Like, I don't even like that term. Like when somebody's like, they're my manager, it's like their leader, right? We all have our different rhythms and figuring out how to apply the, what'd you call it, work play balance or something that you said. And so, like, what is that for you? Like, my version is very different than, Sally or John. And how do we just lead the path and inspire each other and really elicit this? A lot of what you're sharing, Tina, with the EOS model and the collaboration is like ownership of your role. Well, you even said, hey, and people get incentives like based on, EOS is a framework. It works really well for us. There's many different frameworks out there. EOS is a winning one. It sets everyone up to own their seat, be responsible for that, but then also like feel like an owner in the business because their wins directly relate to not only shout outs, but more income for them. And so I think like you're just doing a lot of really cool things and I really appreciate you sharing them. As we wrap up, maybe speak to the leader that is, gosh, I just want to figure out the first step to take because I'm so far from this. I'm a control freak. Like, so if somebody's like, I feel like I'm a control freak, what's the first step? Or for the other person that's like, I've been doing some of this. What's one idea to level up? Like, how would you speak to the person that's struggling versus the person that wants to level up before we wrap up today?
I would say the most basic and simple step that a leader can take is just to carve out time to sit down and ask the questions. Ask the questions of what the people on your team want. What are some ideas? What are the top 3 things that they would focus on if they were in leadership of your organization? Tap into that knowledge and those ideas. We only have one brain, and so tap into theirs. There's going to be potentially some great ideas that come from that. And then the next step is just to continue those conversations. I would say that's probably the best approach, at least a good start.
And I mean, you model that so well. It's like the simplicity, but the power in asking powerful questions and just listening. There's probably an example you can think of where you're like, yeah, that's actually how this idea came to be that we even have this thing happening is we just asked questions and then heard feedback. You would have never thought of it on your own. Someone that's working super close to the problem came up with that because they were so close to it, right? But you had to, this simple yet powerful act of like, I'm just going to come up with really good questions that go deep and get inside the heads of the people that are really close to it to find these new solutions. And then on the other side, I know the thing that you model so well that I don't know many other CPAs definitely, let alone other leaders just in businesses across other industries is you're constantly out with other leaders learning and sharpening going back to like, we were doing a recharge on the beach in Tulum, but it was a lot of like pouring into developing ourselves, learning from others. And I think that is like the sharpening thing because you've probably met through your EOS, you love EOS, you've met other EOS companies and you're learning like what are they doing and sharing in those to just level up your EOS adoption, right? So just compliments.
Thank you. Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Before we go, I just have a couple of fun little lightning round questions for people to get to know the personal side of Tina. So, Tina, if you could pick, and I think I'm cheating because I know the answer to this, but the thing that if you could be anywhere that just you lose track of time, it fills your soul, it's your thing to recharge. Where is this place? What are you doing?
Yeah, you do know the answer to this. It's Lake Monroe on my boat.
Yes. We the cams actually got to do a little retreat out there. It was blazing hot that day. I was like, I don't know,
It
like
was.
97 degrees. Thank God we had some good cocktails and we're hanging out there by the lake. But oh my gosh, it was so good. Okay. And then here's another one. I feel like I know the answer. I feel like I know what you're gonna say. So in the past year, something that has come into your life that has just changed your world.
Oh, my grandson. He owns this heart.
Yes. And talk about your work play and then how Strider, like from a autonomy and work play and like you block time and cherish this time. Tell us about you have a routine that you do that you might just inspire somebody else to think about.
Yeah, so I take Fridays off and I have Strider most Fridays of the month and I get to be grandma or Ida is my grandma name. There's another story behind that. But yeah, so Fridays I get to have fun with him and he's now walking and so this is gonna be a fun spring and summer. This is gonna be a fun year. Yeah.
I love it. I love the pictures.
Yes.
The cam group and our text group gets the great pictures. We had such a cute one this week. Well, Tina, thank you so much. You're a friend that I look up to. I know that I've worked alongside your team for 15 years and just what they think of you. And, like you said earlier, it's always digging in to figure out the problem. I've never been left hanging. Has everything always been perfect? No. Is it perfect anywhere? But always figuring out how are we going to work together to, solve the problem. And I thank you for the leadership that you have in the world. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Nikki. I appreciate you right back, sister.
Tina Mo, my CAM sister. Thank you so much for joining me on Gut Plus Science. I have looked up to you and your leadership for so long. Thank you for not only being a friend, but a mentor to me. And I love that we picked this topic of autonomy and that being the priority in the way that you lead and you build your culture. And I love the stories of your journey of evolution and learning that that was so critical to the way that you wanted to live and lead, but it's become the thing that your team like really holds on to because they feel that ownership in their seat. And I know you've had many people on the team at ACT who have been there for years and they stay for a reason. So, congratulations, my friend. Here is my truth you can act on. So, number one, I love the reminder of workaholic tendencies that can creep in. And Tina shared the story that her dad had come to her about, which just reminded her about steering away from those things that take away from the harmony or integration or balance, whatever you want to call it in life. And just watch that when it's creeping in, watch that. And I love that Tina talked about teaching others on the team what we learn. It becomes a peer learning culture. And Tina shares with the team when she's learning something and is vulnerable through the challenges, and other people share when they're learning things. It's this learning culture together. And then number three, I really like the reminder to, identify a problem or challenge, go to team members, ask questions, just listen and watch how the team, the people that are closest to those problems or opportunities, they help to solve them and then are helping to create and shape the company, the future team norms that you have. They come from ideas that team members bring because you ask them to help you solve it. It's awesome. Tina, thank you for the reminder about EOS being your key framework. There's so many different business frameworks out there. And I know that you have gone deep with EOS and it's become your framework, your blueprint that you run the business on, and everyone has a common language to use EOS as the system for meetings and for check-ins and for your accountability. I love that. And finally, just the autonomy mindset lived out is team members feeling ownership, whether that is how we structure their roles so that they have ownership in their time, or how they're making money in the business. They get incentives based on hitting those key goals, and they can create the outcomes, right? They know the goals, therefore they can create their schedule to hit those. They know how to make more money because they know those key KPIs. Autonomy is so much around ownership, and we create a culture of ownership. It's like we're all in this together. We're all solving these problems together. We're all learning together. It's together. So, Tina, thank you again. And so glad I got to have you on, my friend. See you all next time. We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.